Rain hammered down on Fort Sutherland, the sprawling military base that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. Mud pooled in the cracks of the gravel yard, soaking through Alyssa Grant's boots as she forced herself to keep pace with the squad. Her heart pounded against her ribcage like a war drum, each beat matching the heavy splashes of rain around her. She was a rookie, and everyone knew it. Every grunted command, every sidelong glance from the seasoned operators whispered a silent message. You don't belong here. Sergeant Cole, a veteran of multiple overseas operations with a face carved from decades of hardship, walked at the head of the line. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, and his eyes glimmered with an intensity that made the young soldiers quake. "Come on, Grant," he barked. "Do you want to finish last, or do you want to survive when it counts?" Alyssa's lungs burned. Her chest heaved under the weight of the tactical vest that felt heavier with each step. She could hear the sneers from her fellow squad members, the faint murmur of "rookie" tossed like a challenge in the wind. She didn't care. She'd spent years fighting for this moment, the late nights memorizing combat procedures, the physical training that had pushed her body to the brink, the countless doubts from people who told her she'd never make it. But the yard seemed endless, each lap a test not only of stamina but of resilience. Mud splattered her uniform, streaking her face with grime, but she kept her eyes forward. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to quit, to fold under the pressure, but she didn't, because she couldn't. Cole stopped suddenly, causing the squad to stumble forward. Rain slid down his angular face as he stared at her. Enough standing there like a statue. Time to move. Alyssa snapped to attention, heart hammering. She didn't notice the quiet whisper of surprise among the other operators. Some of them, the older ones, had been expecting her to break, to falter. But she didn't. She sprinted forward, pushing past the burning ache in her legs, past the sharp sting of cold rain, and past the mental image of failure hovering over her like a shadow. By the time they reached the final sprint, Alyssa had edged ahead of two of the more experienced operators. Gasps of quiet surprise followed her, but no one said anything aloud. Cole's eyes narrowed, assessing her. For a moment, she thought she saw respect flicker there, but it was fleeting. "Gear up," he barked abruptly, tossing her a tactical vest from the van parked nearby. "We've got a real call." Alyssa froze. A real mission, on her first day out of basic deployment. Cole's gaze didn't waver. "Move, rookie, and pray you're ready." She felt a shiver crawl up her spine, not from the rain, not from exhaustion, but from an intuitive gnawing in the pit of her stomach. Something about Cole's voice hinted that this mission wouldn't be routine. Something about the way the squad didn't speak, just moved, silent and tense, confirmed it. Inside the armored van, the air smelled of wet gear, gun oil, and anticipation. Alyssa sat next to Corporal Reyes, a lean, sharp-eyed operator who had spent nearly a decade in the field. His eyes studied her carefully, calculating. She returned the glance, feeling the weight of scrutiny from someone who could, and probably would, call her bluff in a heartbeat. "New?" he asked, voice low, not unkind but curious. "Rookie," she admitted. He smirked. "Figures. They always send a rookie first." Alyssa clenched her jaw. She didn't like being underestimated. It had always fueled her. She had faced impossible odds before, the academic rankings that had written her off, the physical tests that almost broke her, the quiet insinuations that she wasn't built for this life. And yet, here she was. Cole called a briefing, projecting a grainy aerial image on the van's monitor. A farmhouse, isolated in the midst of a decaying cornfield, was their target. Command suspected arms trafficking, possibly linked to an unpredictable militia group. The photo revealed a structure surrounded by rusted farm machinery and shadows that might have been the last signs of life before the storm hit. "Intel's thin," muttered Reyes. "Too thin." Cole's jaw tightened. "Command wants eyes on, that's it. Quick in, quick out, no heroics." Alyssa leaned forward, squinting at the images. If they're trafficking weapons, where's the transport? Where's the perimeter? A glance from Reyes carried surprise. Even Cole raised an eyebrow, momentarily impressed. Alyssa's mind raced, piecing together scenarios she'd studied in training. How ambushes were set, how professional traffickers manipulated terrain, how quickly a small mistake could turn a mission deadly. Before anyone could respond, the comms crackled. "Be advised, satellite feed just went dark. Repeat, lost visual on target site." Alyssa's stomach knotted. The farmhouse sat just ahead, quiet and isolated, and now even their eyes in the sky couldn't see it. Cole's face hardened. "Everyone stays sharp. Rookies stay behind me." The van slowed to a crawl. The rain had stopped falling, but an oppressive silence had taken its place. Birds were absent, animals were silent, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Alyssa's pulse quickened. Every instinct told her this was no ordinary recon. As they neared the farmhouse, the doors loomed wide open, swinging slightly in the breeze, an invitation. "Something off," Alyssa muttered under her breath. Reyes shot her a glance. "No kidding." Cole didn't answer. His grip tightened on his rifle. The tension in the van thickened. Alyssa realized that this moment, this approaching threshold, was where rookies became operators or became casualties. And as the van's wheels crunched over gravel, she felt a cold certainty. Stepping into that farmhouse would change everything. Something dangerous awaited. And Alyssa knew that, whether anyone believed in her or not, she would have to rise or fall when it counted. Because no one else could lead this mission yet. Not today. And the storm was just beginning. The armored van rolled slowly over the slick dirt road, the tires kicking up mud that splashed across the squad's boots. Inside, the atmosphere was taut, thick with anticipation, fear, and unspoken questions. Alyssa Grant sat upright in the corner, eyes scanning the horizon through the rain-streaked windows. The farmhouse lay ahead, isolated, surrounded by rotting cornfields that stretched into the darkness like skeletal fingers. Every instinct in her body screamed that something wasn't right. Corporal Reyes, seated across from her, didn't bother hiding his unease. He fiddled with the strap of his rifle, jaw tight. "This is quiet, too quiet," he muttered. Alyssa nodded, fingers drumming against her thigh. No vehicles, no perimeter, no heat signatures, nothing. "Exactly," Reyes said. His eyes met hers, sharp and calculating. "If they're trafficking weapons, they'd have guards, cameras, motion sensors, something. Right now, it looks like someone left the barn doors open." Alyssa swallowed. She had studied every tactical manual, memorized countless scenarios in which insurgents or traffickers set traps in abandoned structures. Her stomach twisted into a tight knot. This wasn't a normal mission. It was a setup. Cole didn't speak, but Alyssa caught the tight line of his jaw, the hard glint in his eyes as he scanned the road. His silence carried more weight than any words. The van slowed to a crawl as the farmhouse loomed closer. Its peeling paint and warped wooden siding gave it the appearance of a place abandoned decades ago. Yet there was something off. The windows weren't just empty, they were staring. The shadows within the broken panes seemed to shift, as if waiting for them. "Eyes up," Cole finally said, voice low but commanding. "Everyone check corners. Rookie, stick close. Move with me." Alyssa's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Every step toward the farmhouse felt like walking into a predator's den. She tightened her gloves, her fingers brushing over the smooth metal of her weapon. She wasn't just moving forward. She was moving into a crucible that could decide whether she lived or died. The van came to a stop near the edge of the field. Cole motioned for the squad to dismount. The mud sucked at their boots, making every movement a struggle. Alyssa followed, careful to match the rhythm of the others. Her breathing echoed in her ears, sharp and ragged. "Intel was vague," Cole muttered to Reyes as they moved in formation. "Command wants visual confirmation. That's it. Quick in, quick out. Don't take risks." Alyssa's eyes flicked to the farmhouse again. Something about the way it sat there, silent, desolate, yet unnervingly deliberate, set her nerves on edge. She crouched, scanning the perimeter. The cornfield rustled in the wind, but there were no footprints, no signs of movement. Yet instinct told her something was wrong. She had been trained to trust instinct, to read terrain and behavior, and her gut screamed danger. "Rookie," Reyes whispered as they neared the entrance. "You feel that?" "I do," she replied quietly. "Something's off." Cole signaled for a breach. The squad fanned out, rifles raised, boots crunching on the broken gravel path. Alyssa stayed close to Cole, her hands trembling slightly despite her best efforts to appear composed. The farmhouse door groaned as it swung open, revealing an interior that seemed frozen in chaos. Furniture was overturned, splintered wood littered the floor, and scorch marks streaked the walls. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle beyond the destruction, just silence. Reyes whispered, "This isn't a fight, it's staged." Alyssa crouched, moving toward a shattered table, noticing the scorch mark embedded in the wood. It was deliberate, almost symbolic. Someone wanted them to see this. Her comms crackled suddenly. "Command, satellite feed lost. Repeat, lost visual on target." Alyssa's stomach dropped. If their eyes in the sky were gone, they were completely blind. The farmhouse had become an unknown variable in a dangerous equation. Cole motioned for the squad to spread out, weapons raised. "Check corners, watch for movement." The silence was suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards, every drip of water from the damaged roof seemed amplified. Alyssa could hear her own pulse, loud and insistent. She scanned the shadows, noting every flicker, every shift. Then movement. A figure appeared in the corner, a man masked, silent. He didn't run, didn't speak. He just watched. Alyssa's breath caught. She felt the cold spike of fear as her training screamed danger. Before she could alert the others, the figure lunged. Gunfire erupted. The masked attacker moved like a shadow, dodging inhumanly fast between beams of light. The squad reacted instantly. Cole fired, taking cover behind a splintered wall. Reyes provided suppressing fire. But the attacker was precise, professional, not a militia member, someone trained. Alyssa stumbled, nearly falling over debris. Her weapon swung up instinctively, taking aim at the moving shadow. She fired. Her first shot missed by inches, but it forced the attacker back, giving her precious moments to regroup. Two more figures emerged from the side rooms, coordinated, silent, calculated. The squad was being ambushed by professionals more than they could handle. "Ambush," Reyes yelled, voice rising above the chaos. Cole barked orders, but the attackers were fast, aggressive, and deadly. The farmhouse had become a death trap. Alyssa's heart pounded as she ducked behind cover. Her mind raced, cataloging angles, exits, weak points. She knew instinctively that survival depended not just on firepower, but on strategy, on clarity under chaos. Then the unmistakable beep of a timer. A device strapped to one of the attacker's vests began counting down. Cole's eyes widened. "Get clear, device, move." The farmhouse seemed to close in around them. Doors were blocked, windows shattered, and debris littered every path. The squad was trapped. Alyssa's pulse surged. She had trained for moments like this in simulations, but simulations never smelled of smoke, never felt the sting of real fear, never carried the weight of life or death in each breath. She could see the fear in Rey's eyes, the strain in Cole's face. He was wounded, pinned by falling debris, and no longer able to lead with clarity. The team looked to her instinctively. And Alyssa realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She was the only one capable of making a split-second decision that could save them all. The beeping grew faster, the farmhouse walls vibrated, time was slipping. Alyssa Grant, the rookie, would have to step up, or they would all die. And as the timer approached the critical moment, her training, courage, and instincts collided, forcing her into a role she had never expected: leader. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside. Lightning illuminated the shattered interior in strobing flashes. Rain slicked the walls, the floors, the broken beams. Every second stretched, every heartbeat thundered, and every decision carried weight beyond comprehension. Alyssa took a deep breath, calming the instinctive tremor in her hands. She scanned the room once more, plotting her next move, her mind moving faster than the chaos surrounding her. Because the squad wasn't just facing an ambush, they were facing a trap designed to kill. And for the first time in her life, she was ready to lead. The farmhouse was silent, too silent. The air inside smelled of burnt wood and dust, and the faint metallic tang of fear seemed to hang in every corner. Alyssa's boots crunched over splintered floorboards as she moved with Cole and the squad, her pulse hammering in rhythm with her breath. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't just a dangerous location. It was a calculated trap, a labyrinth designed to crush them before they even had a chance to react. She crouched beside a broken table, her fingers brushing over a circular scorch mark etched into the wood. It was precise, deliberate, almost ritualistic. Someone wanted them to see it. Her stomach knotted. That mark wasn't a warning. It was a signature, a statement. "Sergeant," she whispered, voice barely audible over the soft hum of tension. "This wasn't a random attack. This is staged. Someone planned this." Cole didn't answer immediately. His jaw clenched, eyes scanning shadows, muscles tensing. He didn't need her to explain what she already knew. He'd seen too many ambushes to be caught off guard. Still, the fact that a rookie could sense the precision behind the chaos gave him a pause. "Spread out," Cole ordered finally, his voice low but commanding. "Check every room, stay sharp. Rookie, stay close." Alyssa obeyed instinctively, scanning the broken rooms as her squad methodically fanned out. Dust swirled with the faint streaks of morning light seeping through shattered windows. Old furniture leaned precariously against walls, and broken glass glittered like shards of ice under the thin sunlight. Yet the farmhouse was empty, or so it appeared. Then movement. A figure leapt from the shadows, mask covering its face, silhouette fluid and inhumanly fast. Alyssa's heart surged as the attacker struck, moving like a phantom between shafts of light. Cole fired, bullets chipping paint and splintering wood around the intruder. Rays responded with precision, but the masked figure dodged every attack with uncanny skill. Alyssa stumbled backward over debris, barely maintaining her balance. Her weapon swung instinctively, but her fingers tightened around the trigger. She had trained for ambushes, for split-second reflexes, but nothing could prepare her for real fear. The pounding of her pulse, the roar of adrenaline, and the raw smell of gunpowder fused into a primal clarity. She had to survive, and she had to protect her squad. Two more figures emerged from side rooms, flanking the team with mechanical precision. Cole shouted orders, but bullets weren't enough. These attackers were trained, professional, almost surgical in their movements. Alyssa's mind raced. Angles, exits, weak points, cover, suppression, timing. She had to calculate everything in milliseconds. And then she heard it, a faint, high-pitched tone that made her stomach clench. "The device," Ray shouted, eyes wide. "It's strapped to one of them." Alyssa crouched behind a fallen beam, flashlight flickering over the masked figures. She could see the blinking red lights on the attacker's vest, a timer counting down. Cole's face was pale, etched with panic. "Rookie, get everyone to cover, now." The squad scrambled, seeking safety where there was none. The farmhouse had become a cage, walls crumbling, floors unstable, and debris everywhere. Each movement was a calculated risk. Alyssa noticed Cole's struggle as a beam pinned his leg. He was injured, immobile, but still shouting orders. She moved to him, gripping his arm. "We need to get out now." He shook his head. "You lead, you," he cut off as another masked attacker lunged. Alyssa's training kicked in. She twisted, pushed the assailant off balance, and delivered a calculated strike to the man's torso, sending him crashing into a wall. Her weapon went off in controlled bursts, suppressing the attackers long enough for Reyes to pull Cole free. But the sound of the timer grew louder. Her ears rang with the warning beep, each second a nail driven deeper into her skull. "Move, move, move," Cole shouted, dragging himself to sturdier cover. Alyssa's eyes darted, calculating escape routes. The farmhouse, once a simple target, had transformed into a deadly maze. Every doorway was blocked, some by fallen furniture, others by debris from the earlier explosions caused by their gunfire. The attackers were relentless, striking with precision, forcing the squad to constantly retreat. "Rookie," Reyes shouted, "they're coordinating. We can't hold them off forever." Alyssa swallowed hard, pushing fear aside. She glanced at the timer again. The device would detonate in less than 2 minutes if they didn't act. Panic wanted to take over, but she had trained to override it, to channel fear into strategy. "Listen," she shouted, voice cutting through the chaos. "We can't go head-on. We need to funnel them into the hallway near the staircase. I can use the debris to collapse part of it, trap them, buy us time." Reyes blinked, hesitation flashing across his face. "You sure?" Alyssa didn't answer. She gestured sharply, signaling the squad. Mitchell, another operator, nodded and moved to help her set the trap. Cole, wincing in pain, tried to protest but recognized the necessity. Every second stretched. The attackers closed in, moving with terrifying synchronization. Alyssa could feel the heat of fear, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her chest. She wasn't just a rookie anymore, not in this moment. They funneled the attackers, Alyssa's plan executing flawlessly under her direction. Mitchell and Reyes provided cover fire while she manipulated the debris. She counted down in her mind, heart hammering. 10, 9, 8, 7. The masked attackers realized too late. One lunged forward, tripped over the barricade Alyssa had engineered. Another collided with the falling beam she had released. Chaos erupted among the attackers. The farmhouse shook as the makeshift trap collapsed part of the floor, pinning one assailant. Alyssa fired another controlled burst, keeping the remaining attackers off balance. The squad breathed hard, moving as one unit under her command. Cole, injured but alive, looked at her with a mix of awe and disbelief. Reyes's eyes were wide, finally seeing the rookie not as an inexperienced operator but as a capable leader in crisis. And then, just as Alyssa began to catch her breath, the realization hit: this wasn't over. She glanced at the timer. It was still ticking. Not the device, they had neutralized it. Phase 2 wasn't just a countdown, it was a warning someone else was coming. Her chest tightened. The farmhouse was a trap, the attackers were professionals, and command had sent them into a death sentence. And Alyssa, rookie no more, had just begun to understand the full weight of what survival truly meant. The farmhouse was silent again, but only for a heartbeat. Beyond the shattered windows, shadows moved, vehicles approaching, engines muted but deadly. Alyssa's gaze sharpened. She turned to the squad, voice steady despite her racing pulse. "Get ready, this isn't finished. We need an exit plan fast." Cole groaned, gripping her shoulder. "Rookie, you've got this." Alyssa didn't nod. She didn't smile. She only stared at the approaching threat, understanding in that instant that she would have to lead, not as a rookie, not as a subordinate, but as the only one capable of guiding them through the nightmare that had just begun. Because the trap was not just the farmhouse. It was the world outside, closing in with every passing second. And Alyssa knew that if they didn't escape, all of them, the nightmare would end in blood. The farmhouse had fallen silent. For a fleeting heartbeat, the only sounds were the harsh rasp of Alyssa's breath and the low groan of the old wooden beams shifting above. But the silence was a lie. Alyssa knew it in her bones. The danger had not ended. It had only shifted. Outside, the storm that had been raging for hours began to ease, leaving the night heavy and humid, the smell of wet earth and smoke from the previous explosion filling the air. Inside, Shadows clung to every corner, stretched unnaturally by the flickering beams of their flashlights. The farmhouse had become a cage, a labyrinth of splintered walls, overturned furniture, and shattered ceilings. Every movement echoed like a gunshot, every breath seemed to betray them. Alyssa crouched beside a fallen doorframe, scanning the room. Cole was pinned against a collapsed support beam, grimacing as he tried to move. His leg was trapped and the pain on his face was a silent warning. He couldn't lead. The squad looked to Alyssa, hesitation flashing across their faces. They weren't looking for orders, they were waiting for guidance. For the rookie, the one they had doubted, to step up. She swallowed hard. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, methodically. Fear was a luxury they couldn't afford. Clarity was their only weapon now. "Raise," she whispered sharply, "get Cole out from under that beam. Mitchell, cover the west hallway, keep your heads down." The squad moved with tense precision, eyes darting to every shadow, every corner. Alyssa felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. The farmhouse wasn't just a building, it was a trap, and the attackers weren't done. Then movement. A figure emerged from the far hallway, a masked attacker, silent and deliberate, advancing like a predator stalking prey. Alyssa's instincts screamed at her, her training kicking in with terrifying clarity. She aimed, breathing in rhythm with her heartbeat, waiting for the right moment. The attacker lunged. Alyssa rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swinging metal pipe, and fired. The shot rang out, ricocheting off the walls, forcing the figure back. But he was fast, too fast. He lunged again, this time grappling her. Pain shot up her arm as he twisted, trying to wrestle her weapon away. She kicked, slammed her knee into his torso, and shoved him against the wall. The man went down, but she didn't pause. There was no time. Two more attackers emerged, flanking the squad with military precision. Each movement was deliberate, synchronized. They weren't militia, they were professionals, trained to eliminate threats efficiently. Alyssa's eyes darted across the room. Debris, broken furniture, uneven floors. Every element was now a potential weapon or a hazard. She realized the farmhouse itself could be used against their attackers. "On my mark," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The squad understood instantly. Mitchell lobbed a flashbang down the west hallway, its explosion of light and noise stunning the attackers. Rays provided cover fire, driving them toward the center of the room where Alyssa had prepared an improvised barricade from fallen beams. The first attacker slammed into it, momentarily trapped. The second stumbled over debris Alyssa had positioned strategically. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Cole, still pinned, gritted his teeth. "Good thinking, rookie," he managed, his voice strained. The squad surged as one, moving with a cohesion that surprised even Alyssa. The masked figures, trained killers, were forced to adapt, but Alyssa had anticipated their moves, channeling the chaos into a controlled flow of action. Then the unmistakable sound of a timer beeped. Not just any timer, the device one of the attackers had carried before, rigged to detonate if they were neutralized too quickly. It was hidden somewhere in the building, counting down, threatening to turn the farmhouse into a tomb. Alyssa's chest tightened. She signaled Rays and Mitchell, "Sweep the rooms, find the device, now." The squad split, moving carefully through the ruined interior. Each room held its own dangers: unstable floors, shattered windows, fallen beams. Every second counted. Alyssa's flashlight flicked across a corner. There, barely visible under a pile of debris, was the device. Small, blinking red light. A countdown, less than 30 seconds. Her hands moved quickly, trained but shaking. She ripped cables, cut connections with surgical precision, her mind a whirlwind of calculations. Every movement had to be exact. One wrong cut, one misplaced hand, and the building would erupt around them. Time seemed to stretch. The device ticked down, louder in her ears with every second. Her vision narrowed to focus on the wires, the red light, the danger inches away. She cut the final cable. Silence. Alyssa exhaled, relief crashing over her, but it was short-lived. From the shadows, a group of attackers regrouped, emerging from a hidden hallway. They had survived the initial chaos, professional and unrelenting. Alyssa's squad was wounded, disoriented, but she didn't hesitate. "Back to back," she shouted. "Cover each other, we move together." The farmhouse erupted again into gunfire, shouts, and the crash of falling debris. Bullets ricocheted, splintering walls, forcing the squad to constantly adjust positions. Alyssa moved with a purpose she didn't know she possessed hours ago. Her every decision was a matter of life and death. Rays fired from a broken doorway, suppressing an attacker advancing from the south. Mitchell hurled debris to slow the enemy, while Cole, grimacing in pain, provided cover where he could. Alyssa moved through the chaos, identifying weak points, directing her team, anticipating the attacker's movements. And then a sudden realization hit her: the squad had no clear exit. The farmhouse was a maze, the exits blocked or too exposed. Outside, reinforcements were unknown. Every move was a risk. Every second brought them closer to a potential disaster. Alyssa's mind raced. Improvised barricades, calculated fire, suppressed angles, everything had bought them time. But it wouldn't last. They needed a way out, or they would be trapped, overwhelmed, and eliminated. She turned to the squad, voice calm but commanding. "We've neutralized the immediate threat, but phase 2 is coming. Get ready. We find an exit or we die here. Understand?" The nods she received were hesitant but firm. They trusted her, not because she was a veteran, not because she had proven herself over years of service, but because she had led them through chaos when no one else could. And as Alyssa's eyes swept the room, noting every possible exit, every possible threat, the farmhouse seemed to pulse around them, alive, waiting, a predator watching its prey. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the storm outside, each second a heartbeat in a race for survival. The farmhouse groaned around them, a building pushed to its limits, and Alyssa Grant could feel the tension vibrating through every splintered beam beneath her boots. They had survived the initial ambush. The device had been neutralized. Yet even as the adrenaline coursed through her veins, she knew that calm was a lie. Danger still lurked, invisible and patient, waiting to strike. Cole was trapped beneath a collapsed beam, his face pale and strained with pain. The effort of breathing seemed almost too much. Reyes and Mitchell were bleeding from minor cuts and abrasions, moving cautiously among the debris, scanning the darkened rooms for threats. Every shadow could hide an attacker, every broken doorway a potential ambush point. Alyssa crouched beside Cole. "You're going to be fine. Just hold on," she said, though the words felt hollow even to her ears. His eyes, wide with pain, flicked toward her, searching for reassurance. "Rookie," he rasped, Get the team out, I can't." "You won't need to leave me behind," Alyssa snapped, voice stronger than she felt. "We move together or no one moves at all." Cole's jaw tightened, and he nodded, realizing that leadership had shifted to the young rookie. They began moving cautiously toward a side exit Alyssa had identified. The farmhouse seemed almost alive, groaning and creaking under its own damaged weight. Every step was measured, calculated, and yet, just as they thought they had a rhythm, it happened. A distant sound, soft at first, then growing into a thunderous roar, shook the walls and made dust fall from the ceiling. Alyssa froze, heart hammering. "Explosion," Reyes shouted. "Back blast, south wing, secondary device." A massive shockwave tore through the building. Splinters and debris rained down around them. Alyssa felt herself lifted off her feet, slammed into a wall. Pain shot up her side, breath stolen from her lungs. She gasped, trying to orient herself amidst the chaos. Smoke and dust filled every corner of the room. Visibility dropped to near zero. Her flashlight flickered and died, leaving only the pale moonlight seeping through broken windows. The smell of burning wood, metal, and fear filled her nostrils. "Cole," she yelled, crawling toward him. His leg was pinned beneath a fallen beam, blood streaking his pants. "I'm fine," he groaned, though the lie was evident in the tight line of his jaw. "Not moving without you," Alyssa said, voice shaking with adrenaline. She shifted the beam just enough to free him, his gritted teeth suppressing a cry of pain. Reyes and Mitchell helped him to his feet, steadying him as they navigated the wreckage. Outside, the farmhouse's roof had partially collapsed. Flames licked the broken timbers, smoke curling into the night sky. The once isolated farmhouse now looked like a war zone frozen in time, every wall a scar, every shadow a reminder of how close they had come to death. Alyssa's squad had survived the ambush, but their injuries were mounting. Mitchell clutched a gash on his arm, Ray's temple was bleeding, and Cole was clearly struggling to keep weight on his injured leg. The rookies' carefully planned exit route had narrowed. They were vulnerable, exposed, and the night had only just begun. "Move," Alyssa shouted, taking the lead. "Stick close, no stragglers." The squad followed, moving like ghosts through the ruined interior. Every floorboard was a threat, every doorway a potential trap. Alyssa's mind raced, calculating angles, exits, and tactical advantage as bullets, sporadic and terrifying, shattered the remnants of windows and splintered walls. Then from outside she heard the low rumble of engines. Her stomach dropped. Reinforcements weren't coming for them, they were coming for the attackers. But that also meant that someone had triggered Phase 2, another threat moving fast, closing in. "They're back," Reyes muttered. "Another squad professional." Alyssa's eyes darted across the broken landscape. The debris from the collapsed roof, the overturned furniture, and the shattered walls could be used as cover, but only temporarily. Every second counted. They needed to get out of the farmhouse before the second wave struck. She sprinted ahead, leading the squad toward the back exit, a small door partially obscured by rubble. Cole stumbled behind her, grimacing, but she grabbed his arm and steadied him. "You can do this. Just trust me." Reyes and Mitchell flanked her, scanning every shadow. Alyssa's flashlight was dead, but her other senses were alive. The smell of smoke, the vibration of the ground, the sound of distant footsteps, everything told her that danger was close. Then the enemy struck again. Masked figures emerged from the darkness outside, bullets ripping through walls and scattering debris. Alyssa dropped behind a fallen beam, returning fire with precision she hadn't known she possessed hours ago. Every shot, every movement was calculated. The attackers were professionals, but Alyssa's quick thinking and leadership kept the squad alive. Reyes shouted, "They're surrounding us." Alyssa's mind raced. They couldn't hold out. They couldn't fight indefinitely. The farmhouse was compromised. She scanned the ruined rooms, looking for an escape. Her eyes landed on a pile of debris leading to a half-collapsed grain shed outside, an old building used for storage, partially hidden behind tall weeds and rusted machinery. It was a risky move, but it might be their only chance. "Follow me," she yelled, voice cutting through the chaos. "We're moving to the shed, stick together." The squad moved as one, bullets ricocheting around them, wood splintering under the weight of gunfire. Alyssa led the charge, diving over debris, pulling Mitchell and Reyes past obstacles. Cole gritted his teeth, relying on her guidance. Every step was perilous. The attackers were relentless, firing from hidden positions, forcing the squad to zigzag, duck, and improvise cover from broken furniture, fallen beams, and even pieces of the collapsed ceiling. And then, just as they neared the shed, Alyssa's instincts screamed danger. She glanced back. The farmhouse was about to collapse entirely. The roof, weakened by the earlier explosion, was starting to give way. A cascade of burning beams and debris threatened to bury anyone left behind. "Move faster," she shouted, adrenaline surging. The squad surged forward, finally reaching the grain shed. Alyssa slammed the door behind them, barricading it with what little they could find. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of smoke, but they were alive. For a moment, silence fell. The explosion outside had shaken the ground, rattled the squad's nerves, and left every member trembling. Alyssa's chest heaved as she looked at her team: Cole, injured but alive; Reyes, bloodied but breathing; Mitchell, bruised but alert. They had survived. But survival came with a cost. The farmhouse was destroyed. The attackers were still out there, and the larger threat, Phase 2, loomed beyond the horizon, approaching fast. Alyssa Grant, the rookie, had just saved her squad from annihilation, but the night was far from over. And she knew, deep in her bones, that her leadership had only just begun. The grain shed smelled of dust, oil, and fear. Alyssa Grant pressed her back against the rough wooden wall, her chest heaving from exertion, her ears still ringing from the explosion that had nearly destroyed the farmhouse. Outside, the storm had faded, leaving an eerie calm that only made the night seem heavier, more dangerous. The squad was battered, bruised, and bleeding, and yet they were alive. For now. Cole leaned against a support beam, wincing as he adjusted his leg. "Rookie," he rasped, voice strained but authoritative, "we can't stay here. They'll find us. We need a plan." Alyssa nodded, swallowing the lump of fear in her throat. She could feel the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders, the responsibility for lives, for decisions, for every action that could mean survival or death. The adrenaline that had carried her through the farmhouse now needed to be channeled into strategy. "Cole, you're injured," she said firmly. "I'm in charge. Follow my lead." His eyes widened slightly, a mix of pride and disbelief. For the first time in hours, he was no longer the one directing the squad. Alyssa had stepped into that role, and he knew it. Reyes, still bleeding from a gash above his temple, muttered under his breath, "You sure about this?" "I don't have a choice," Alyssa replied. "And neither do you. We move fast, stay together, and survive. That's the plan." The squad took a moment to assess injuries and supplies. Mitchell's arm was bleeding heavily, so Alyssa ripped part of her jacket to make a makeshift bandage. Reyes checked his rifle, making sure it was operational despite the chaos. Cole gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain, his trust in her implicit. Alyssa's eyes scanned the darkness beyond the shed. The farmhouse smoldered behind them, a warning that they had barely escaped death. And the attackers, Phase 2, were still out there, professional, relentless, and well-equipped. They would track them, hunt them, and attempt to finish what they had started. "We can't stay here," Alyssa said. "We need to get to higher ground. There's a ridge about a mile east that will give us cover and visibility. From there, we can see the perimeter, plan our next move, and avoid walking into another trap." Cole nodded. "Good thinking, but moving will be dangerous." "I know," Alyssa admitted. "But staying is more dangerous. We're exposed, we're wounded, and they're professionals. They'll find us if we don't keep moving." The squad followed her lead as they slipped into the night. Mud squelched beneath their boots, and the cold air bit at their exposed skin. Alyssa stayed alert, every sense heightened. She scanned the shadows for movement, listening for the faintest sound of pursuit, noting every detail of the terrain. Halfway to the ridge, a low rumble reached them, a vehicle distant but approaching fast. Alyssa signaled for them to drop into the ditch at the side of the muddy trail. The squad obeyed silently, hearts pounding. Through the darkness, they could see headlights piercing the tree line, four-wheel drive vehicles moving fast, methodical, professional. Alyssa's gut twisted. The attackers were not only surviving, they were regrouping. They were organized, and they were closing in. "They're tracking us," she whispered. "We need to move faster. Split up is not an option." Cole's leg throbbed painfully as he limped along behind her. "Rookie, you're making the right call," he said, voice strained. "Keep pushing, I trust you." Alyssa's chest tightened. The weight of his trust, combined with the responsibility for the squad, made her acutely aware that failure was not an option. She adjusted their pace, calculating every step over uneven terrain, avoiding debris, and using the natural shadows of the ridgeline to conceal their movement. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush caught her attention. Alyssa froze, signaling the squad to halt. The shadows shifted, and 3 figures emerged, masked, armed, and closing in with tactical precision. "Contact," Reyes hissed, raising his rifle. Alyssa acted without hesitation. Suppressing fire, "On my mark!" She fired controlled bursts, driving the attackers back, giving the squad precious seconds to reposition behind a natural embankment. The attackers regrouped, flanking from both sides. Alyssa's mind raced, every second counted. She noted the angles, the cover, the trajectory of incoming fire. The ridge would give them height, but only if they could reach it. "Move on my signal," she shouted. 1, 2, 3, go. The squad surged forward, bullets whipping past them, mud flying underfoot. Alyssa led the charge, dragging Mitchell's injured arm and helping Cole over fallen logs. Reyes provided covering fire, every shot calculated to suppress and protect. They reached the base of the ridge, exhaustion threatening to pull them down. Alyssa's lungs burned, her hands slick with mud and sweat. But she couldn't stop. Not yet. Not when the squad depended on her. As they climbed, the attackers continued to pursue, but the uneven terrain slowed them. Alyssa used the ridge's natural curvature to create a choke point. The attackers funneled into a narrow section, giving the squad a tactical advantage despite their injuries. "Hold them here," Alyssa commanded. "Focus fire, keep moving higher." Bullets tore through the night, but Alyssa's leadership kept the squad coordinated. Every move was precise, every command executed with deadly efficiency. For the first time, the squad followed the rookie not just because they had to, but because they believed in her judgment. At the ridge's crest, they paused. The night stretched out before them, a vast expanse of open fields and tree line. From this vantage, Alyssa could see the farmhouse smoldering behind them, the attackers regrouping and the approaching vehicles. They were still outmatched, but now they had visibility, cover, and a chance to plan their next move. Cole sank to the ground, wincing. "Rookie, you've done more than I ever expected," he said, voice heavy with admiration. Reyes nodded. "We would have been dead if it weren't for you." Alyssa shook her head, eyes scanning the dark horizon. "We're not safe yet," she said firmly. "Phase 2 isn't over. They'll adapt. We need to keep moving, find reinforcements, and get out before they corner us again." The squad nodded, battered but alive, trusting the rookie who had become their leader in the span of a single deadly night. Alyssa knew that each second mattered, that the next decision could mean survival or death. And as she looked down at the fields, the ridge beneath their boots, and the distant, moving shadows of the enemy, she realized something profound. Leadership wasn't about rank or experience or even training. It was about courage, clarity, and the ability to act when everything around you screamed to freeze. Tonight, Alyssa Grant had become more than a rookie. She had become a leader. The ridge was their fragile sanctuary, offering a temporary reprieve from the chaos of the farmhouse. The squad crouched behind the jagged rocks and fallen trees, breathing hard, each heartbeat a drum of tension in the cold night. Bullets still echoed from the distance, and the faint glow of headlights illuminated the terrain in flashes, hinting at the relentless advance of the attackers. Alyssa Grant wiped sweat and grime from her brow, eyes scanning the darkness. The squad looked to her, trusting her judgment implicitly now. She had led them through explosions, ambushes, and near-death scenarios, but the real test lay ahead. The attackers weren't amateurs. They were professionals, adaptive and ruthless. Alyssa knew that the next move would define whether they survived the night. "Listen up," she whispered, voice low but firm. "They'll push from 3 directions. We need a kill zone. Our advantage is height and cover. If we control this ridge, we control the fight. Mitchell, take the left flank. Reyes the right. Cole and I will hold the center." Cole winced as he tried to reposition himself, but Alyssa helped him, adjusting his stance to protect his injured leg. "You're a natural at this," he muttered through gritted teeth. "Focus on staying alive," Alyssa shot back. "We're not heroes yet, we're survivors." The night seemed to hold its breath. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves, Every distant engine noise was amplified. The attackers approached methodically, weapons trained on their position, unaware of the strategic advantage Alyssa had orchestrated. Then the first wave moved in, masked figures emerging from the tree line, attempting to flank the squad. "Fire on my mark," Alyssa shouted. Bullets tore through the air, ricocheting off rocks, tearing holes in the earth around them. Mitchell's controlled bursts held the left flank, Ray's suppressed the right, and Cole fired with precision, supporting the center. The attackers faltered under the coordinated fire, but their numbers and persistence were overwhelming. Alyssa's mind raced. She calculated every angle, every possible retreat route, every weak point in the attackers' formation. Survival depended on exploiting the smallest advantage. "Grenade!" she shouted suddenly, and tossed a flashbang toward the nearest cluster of attackers. The explosion of light and noise disoriented them, buying precious seconds. Mitchell moved quickly, taking down 2 attackers who had recovered from the flashbang. Ray's fired again, dropping another 2. Cole gritted his teeth as he aimed, conserving his strength while providing cover. Alyssa herself didn't stop, moving, firing, calculating, leading. She had become the axis around which the squad's survival turned. But then a shout rang out behind them. A vehicle had breached the ridge, carrying reinforcements for the attackers. Heavy weapons mounted on the back, aimed directly at their position. The squad's temporary sanctuary was about to become a death trap. "Move," Alyssa shouted. "We can't hold this position. Fall back to the secondary ridge." The squad obeyed, navigating the rocky terrain while under fire. Bullets tore through the air, rocks flew as rounds ricocheted, and dust and debris kicked into the night. Alyssa led, always scanning, always anticipating, never letting fear take hold. They reached a secondary ridge, partially hidden by dense trees. It offered less visibility but more cover. Alyssa quickly assessed the terrain. There was a steep slope on one side, too dangerous to descend under fire, but the other side had a narrow path leading to the tree line, offering potential escape. "Cover fire while I move Cole," Alyssa commanded. Mitchell and Ray's opened fire, suppressing the attackers long enough for Alyssa to lift Cole over a fallen tree, using every ounce of strength she had. Cole grimaced, but she held him steady, guiding him to safer ground. Once they were regrouped, Alyssa took a moment to breathe. Her chest burned, her hands were raw from gripping her weapon, but she couldn't pause for long. The attackers were reorganizing, vehicles inching closer, and the night was far from over. "Here's the plan," she said, voice firm despite exhaustion. "We'll use the slope to funnel them. We set traps, fallen logs, rocks, anything to slow them down. Then we move through the tree line. From there we can find a road signal for extraction. But we stick together. No one goes alone." The squad nodded, wounded but alive, trusting her implicitly. Alyssa felt the weight of that trust, understanding that every decision she made now could save, or cost, their lives. They prepared improvised traps, positioning debris to create obstacles along the slope. Every move was calculated, designed to disrupt the attackers' momentum. Alyssa herself placed rocks strategically to roll down if the enemy got too close. Then the attackers advanced again, vehicles rumbling, masked figures taking position. Alyssa's heart raced. This was the final confrontation, the moment that would decide survival. "Hold your fire until they're in the kill zone," she shouted. The attackers surged forward, following the path Alyssa had predicted. Mitchell released a volley of suppressing fire, causing the first wave to stumble. Rocks rolled down the slope, hitting attackers and knocking them off balance. Alyssa and Ray's fired in synchronized bursts, precision controlling the chaos. Cole, injured but determined, took down 2 attackers approaching from the flank. Every move was a struggle, every second a gamble. Alyssa herself ducked behind a boulder, firing, reloading, calculating angles. She realized then that she had transcended the role of rookie. She was now the squad's anchor, their strategist, their protector. The attackers regrouped, realizing too late that they had been funneled into a trap. The slope and improvised obstacles slowed them, giving the squad the advantage. Alyssa signaled a final charge toward the tree line. "Now move," she shouted. The squad surged, adrenaline propelling them forward. Bullets whizzed past, sparks flying as rounds struck rocks and trees. The attackers, caught in the kill zone, were disoriented, giving the squad the opening they needed. Alyssa led them into the tree line, navigating the dense underbrush, moving silently but swiftly. Behind them, the chaos of the kill zone raged, bullets, shouts, and the roar of engines marking the attackers' frustration. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the squad reached a small clearing with a faint dirt path leading toward the distant lights of a rural road. They paused, catching their breath, bruised, bloodied, but alive. Cole leaned against a tree, wincing but smiling faintly. "Rookie, you did it. You got us out." Reyes nodded, exhaustion evident in every line of his face. "I didn't think a rookie could lead us like that. You saved us all." Alyssa shook her head, chest heaving. "We survived because we stayed together, and because we never stopped moving. Leadership isn't about being the best fighter, it's about making the right choice when everyone else is frozen." The squad looked around, still tense, knowing the attackers were likely still nearby. But for the first time in hours, they felt a glimmer of hope. The ridge, the farmhouse, the tree line, all of it had tested them, pushed them to the brink, but they had survived. Alyssa allowed herself a brief moment to absorb the weight of what had happened. She had started the night as a rookie, inexperienced and uncertain. But under fire, under pressure, she had found clarity, courage, and leadership. She had guided her squad through a deadly gauntlet, proving that instinct, strategy, and determination could overcome even the most lethal threat. And yet, as the distant lights of vehicles moved away, shadows lingering in the trees, Alyssa knew the night wasn't truly over. They were alive, but the mission, the danger, and the choices ahead would continue to test them. The forest clearing was quiet now, but only deceptively. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves reminded Alyssa Grant and her squad that the night was far from over. They had survived ambushes, explosions, and professional attackers, but the final challenge remained: extraction. Alyssa crouched behind a gnarled tree, scanning the faint glow of headlights in the distance. The rural road beyond the tree line was their link to safety. A military helicopter had been dispatched, only minutes away, but until it arrived, the squad was exposed, wounded, and vulnerable. Cole leaned against a fallen log, his leg heavily bandaged but still throbbing with pain. "Rookie, I don't know how you did it," he muttered, voice hoarse but filled with respect. "You led us through hell tonight." Alyssa shook her head, mud streaked across her face, chest heaving. "We survived because we stuck together, that's all. I just made sure we kept moving." Mitchell and Reyes nodded, silent acknowledgement in their eyes. They were bruised, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. They trusted Alyssa implicitly now, not because she had rank or experience, but because she had earned it. Suddenly, the night air was pierced by the distant whoop-whoop of rotor blades. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the clearing, bouncing off the trees, signaling salvation. The squad exchanged brief glances, hope flashing in their eyes. Alyssa led them toward the tree line, every movement deliberate, every step cautious. They couldn't afford a mistake. The attackers were still out there somewhere, possibly lying in wait. Every second counted. As they reached the edge of the clearing, Alyssa crouched low, signaling the squad to do the same. From the shadows, figures emerged, masked attackers attempting one last interception. "Ambush!" Mitchell shouted, opening fire, but Alyssa's instincts were faster. She motioned for the squad to split right flank and left flank, using the trees for cover. Bullets ricocheted around them, kicking up dirt and splintering bark. Alyssa's heart raced. This was the final test. Every decision, every movement mattered. She fired a controlled burst, forcing two attackers back, and then sprinted toward the clearing, dragging Cole along. Reyes and Mitchell provided covering fire, suppressing the enemy long enough for the squad to reach the open road. The helicopter's searchlight pierced the darkness, illuminating the tree line. Alyssa raised her arm, signaling for extraction. The rotor wash tore leaves from the trees, whipping them around in a chaotic swirl, but it also revealed the final danger. One masked attacker charging toward them with a weapon raised. Alyssa's pulse quickened. One split-second decision could save or doom them. She aimed carefully, fired, and hit her mark. The attacker collapsed, giving the squad the precious seconds needed to reach the landing zone. The helicopter hovered low, ramps down, rotors kicking up mud and debris. Alyssa moved first, pulling Cole along with her. They hit the ramp, scrambled inside, and collapsed onto the floor. Mitchell and Reyes followed immediately, adrenaline and exhaustion etched into every line of their faces. Inside, the helicopter shook violently, but the squad was alive, breathing heavily, bloodied but triumphant. Alyssa sat back, chest heaving, sweat and grime streaked across her face. The weight of the night's events settled on her shoulders, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and an undeniable sense of accomplishment. Cole leaned toward her, voice low but full of awe. "Rookie, you led us through that. You saved us. I don't think anyone else could have done it." Alyssa shook her head, exhaustion and humility in equal measure. "We saved each other. I just made the decisions when it mattered." The helicopter lifted off, flying over the smoldering remains of the farmhouse. Below, the wreckage of the night's chaos was visible in the dim moonlight: burned wood, shattered beams, splintered earth. The attackers had been forced to retreat. The night had been won, but the scars would remain. As the aircraft flew toward safety, Alyssa allowed herself a rare moment to reflect. Hours ago, she had been a rookie, inexperienced and uncertain. Tonight, she had been tested in ways no training could have prepared her for. She had led a squad through ambushes, explosions, and professional attackers, making split-second decisions that determined life or death. And she had emerged victorious. Reyes broke the silence, voice filled with admiration. "Rookie, you didn't just survive tonight. You commanded. You were the difference between life and death for all of us." Mitchell nodded, exhaustion evident in his posture. "You've got the instincts, the courage, and the brains. You're more than a rookie now, you're a leader." Alyssa allowed a small, exhausted smile. Leadership wasn't about rank or experience. It was about courage, clarity, and the ability to act when others froze. Tonight, she had proven herself, not just to the squad, but to herself. The helicopter banked, heading toward a secure extraction point. In the distance, the first hints of dawn were breaking, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink. The darkness of night was receding, leaving behind the light of survival, the glow of achievement, and the promise of tomorrow. Cole, still wincing from his injury, looked at Alyssa with a mixture of gratitude and respect. "You've earned your place, Grant. Rookie or not, you're a leader now. Don't ever doubt it." Alyssa nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle in her chest. She had stepped into the crucible of fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and unbroken. The mission had been deadly, the odds stacked against them, but they had survived. And more importantly, they had done so because she had led them. The helicopter touched down at the secure extraction point. Military personnel rushed forward, tending to the squad's injuries, debriefing them, and ensuring their safety. Alyssa stepped off last, scanning the horizon one final time. The night had tested her, pushed her to her limits, and revealed her true potential. As she watched her squad receive medical attention and support, Alyssa realized that the journey from rookie to leader was complete, not because of a title, not because of rank, but because she had faced the impossible and prevailed. The sun broke fully over the horizon, illuminating the scars of the night, but also the resilience of those who had survived it. Alyssa Grant, once a rookie, now stood as a testament to courage, leadership, and determination. She had led her squad through the deadliest night of their lives, and she had emerged victorious.